Hey guys, Captain Dave Schneider, it's a guide's life, and it's Q&A time. Listen, I'm really very happy about this. I'm also absolutely very excited, of course, but I really got some really good questions, and I really appreciate that, you guys. Listen, way to bail me out on this deal. All right, so you can tell I'm so excited, I'm tongue-tied, but I want to get started right away because I want to keep this video in a reasonable time slot so that you'll watch it and not go, good Lord, Dave. So we're going to jump right in, all right? And I'm just going to go from the bottom to the top and get as far as I can in the next, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 minutes or so. So, here we go. First question, Terry Donner. Terry, listen, I appreciate this. This particular one is more of just a history thing. Terry wanted to know if I remember the very first fish I caught and what it was. I absolutely remember. I've kind of told this story before, but my wife turned me on to fishing. The very first fish I ever caught was on a night crawler and a little split shot on a Zebco 202 spin cast reel. You know, the old closed face that had the original 25-pound test line on it. Oh, it was... Anyway, I didn't do any of the rigging. I didn't do any of the baiting, but I sat there and I caught... My very first fish was a rock bass. Somebody said they're like a Google eye or something like that, but we up north, we've always called them rock bass. It's a type of panfish. My very first fish was about this big. I kid you not. And I was hooked on fishing. So anyway, Terry, thanks for the question, man. I appreciate that. Going right up the list here. John Simon wants to know, when you get back to Okeechobee, how are you going to find the fish? He also wants to know, what do you do to find fish when you come back to a lake after it's been a while? And without any guide friends or asking anybody. And that's a great question, John. I'm going to tell you straight up. The very first time I ever went to Lake Okeechobee, I'd never been there. I didn't ask anybody. I just put in. I went straight out the Clewiston Canal, out of the spillways, out of the Roland Martin Marina area there, out of the boat launch. I went straight out. I went straight out into the lake. In fact, I had no idea what to do. I just got in my boat. It's very intimidating. Everything looks the same. People say it all looks the same. It's true. Everything really does all look the same there. And what I did is I literally drove out. I had the spoil islands on my left as I cleared the Coot Bay area and come out into the outside of Coot Bay, out in the lake. And I looked over to my right and I saw where the grass ended. I said, well, the grass are on the outside, they're on the inside, or they're in it. And that was kind of my thought. I turned around, I started fishing, I made a right, got up in it, I started fishing the first grass bed of what I now know is Kissimmee grass and bulrushes. And my first little patch of grass I came up to, I was flipping a beaver, that oxblood beaver that I like to throw so much. I was pitching that beaver. The only reason I chose that was because the water looked the same color as some other water I'd fished. And that's a key point. Apply what you know as a fisherman everywhere you go. And if it doesn't work, then go to the next thing. But start with what you know. I picked a bait that it looked like the water I'd fished before, pitched it out there, 5 or 6 pitches, bam, I caught a little 1.5-pound bass. 15 minutes later, on the back side of that same little patch of grass, it was just a patch of grass out there, as you headed into the more hard-lined area, I caught an 8-pound, 2-ounce largemouth bass. It was the biggest bass I'd ever caught in my life. I picked it up. I had some video. I shot some video of it. It's kind of funny, but I called one of my good friends and said, man, this Lake Okeechobee thing is easy. My second fish was an 8.2. So obviously it was love at first sight, so to speak. What I'll do now, I'll do the same thing. I'll go out into areas where, in this case, areas that I have an idea because I've been there before. But on Okeechobee, I'm simply going to get out. I'm going to look for some clean water, and I'm going to start fishing. John, that's what you do. Anybody who tells you any difference, just full of franks and beans. You got to fish. You got to fish. You got to put your time on the water. I'll start someplace and work my way from there. I'll probably do exactly what I just did. I'll probably start on the outside grass lines because it's summertime. And I'll, if I don't get anything there, I'll work in a little bit. I know on Okeechobee right now the water's rising, so I'll take that into my thought process. But I'm going to start looking on the outside and work my way back in. And I'll where I catch the fish, I'll take that information and I'll start to apply it to other areas that are just like it. It's pattern fishing. But that's what I'm going to do, John. What I did in Michigan, when I came here to Michigan, I hadn't been on Mullet and Burt Lakes and these waters. I haven't been there in a year. There's 3 things here. There's wood, There's water, or there's rocks, and there's grass on the break lines. I started with grass, and I found some fish. I went to the rocks, and I found some fish. I went to the wood and found no fish. So I ruled the wood out, and I started beating the water. I started going up and down the lake and all the places where I really started to center on the grass lines, because I knew that you got to have some basic understanding of what time of the year it is. I knew that it was right at the end of the spawn season. I looked in the areas where I might find beds, didn't see anything. I caught one fish on a bed, a 4-pounder. In fact, you saw that on video. Gary Long and I caught that fish. But in any case, I started more and more. I just started fishing the grass lines all over the lake, and that's how I've been getting paid. They're in the grass, and that's a summertime pattern. Out in the lake now, it's getting better and better and better. But John, that's the kind of thing I do. I look at what I have, and I apply my basic, particularly when it comes to lure choice. It's always, what is the cover, what has it given me, and I don't try and force my hand. I'll use the best baits in that cover. And if you find a grass line, if you find a shallow grass flat, run through the gamut of lures in your tackle box that you can fish in shallow grass effectively, and you start zipping through them until the bass show you which one they like. That's kind of how you approach it. That's what I will do. And John, and I appreciate your question, John. And that's what I'm going to do. I don't like to get information. Mark Davis, I fished with Mark Davis in the top 150 in Alberton, Georgia, in 1997, and he gave me the best piece of advice I've ever maybe gotten, and that was, he said, Dave, don't listen to doc talk. He said, don't listen to everything that everybody's saying. And anybody who's around me, they know I don't even want to hear that stuff for the most part. Don't listen to doc talk. You go out and you find your fish. The problem with somebody saying, yeah, go over here, they're over there, is if you go there and they're not there, which almost always happens, you don't really know where to go next. You don't know, do I go in, do I go out, where do they go from here? But if you go and find fish yourself, then you fish around that area and you kind of figure out everything that's there, and you've got some thought process to go on. You're not just stuck because you don't know what to do next. So that was Mark Davis's advice, and that's my advice to you. Find your own fish. I don't even want to know what people are catching them on. I really don't. I'll for the most part figure that stuff out on my own, and it's more rewarding for me personally. But more important than anything is I know what to do next. If things don't work, I know what to do next. All right, thanks, John. Next question. It says, if you only have 2 or 3 bait cast reels, what type of line would you load on them? This fellow lives in North Texas. He doesn't have a boat. His rods are 7-foot medium heavy to 7.4 heavy. It's James. It's James. It looks like Conlon. James, thanks for the question. If I had 2 or 3 rods, what would I load on them? I'm going to have a heavy monofilament, because I'm going to probably at some point want to fish a bait that I'm going to want to keep up near the surface, and monofilament floats. And so that'll assist me to do that. So I'm going to have a heavy monofilament. If I'm fishing a lot of open water, that heavy monofilament might be 14-pound tests. I like Trilene XT green. That's almost always what I use in monofilament. It's just a personal choice. I'll definitely have a braid line. Probably my big stick will have a braid on it. I like 50-pound braid for the most part. You can really, I fish with 50-pound most of the time. Although I will tell you, I did put 65-pound braid on my Shiner rig, on my Shiner rods on Okeechobee now. And I've been doing that. I've been fishing with that very successfully. But I'd say a 50-pound braid, James. I would say a 50-pound braid. And then I'd probably put a braid on the other one too, because if I'm going to use fluorocarbon, I'm going to a lot of times use a leader. And guys, I'm the king of swivels as opposed to uniknots and things like that. Sometimes my leader is this long, and sometimes it's really long. It depends on if I'm pitching and flipping or if I'm casting and what have you. But that's probably what I would do, brother. Fishing from shore, especially a lot of frog baits and things like that, you can fish those on that heavy monofilament that we're talking about. If you want something, another thing you can do with the frog bait is you can use your braid, but then put a short monofilament leader on there too to help that bait float a little better. And again, your topwater baits need monofilament, guys, because it keeps your bait on top. It doesn't do anything funky to make it, because braid will ultimately sink as well. But that's what I'd probably do, man. Let's see. You already, could you swimming worm? It says here, can you talk about your swimming worm setup? Yes, I absolutely will. That's Pamela Cantrell. Pamela, it says I'm headed to Clear Lake out west next week, and pointers and how to catch them there. If I'm in real clear water, I'm definitely going to use fluorocarbon. Remember, fluorocarbon sinks, so that's nice. On my swimming worms, if I'm using the small swimming worm, I'm probably going to use a 3/0 Trocar extra wide gap hook. And I'm going to peg probably anywhere between a 1/4 ounce to a 3/8 ounce weight in front of it, depending on how windy it is and depending on how deep I want it to get. You know, I like the Magnum Zoom swim worms. I also use the Gambler burner worms. As far as color goes, I use the good Lord, the green. I use my shades of green, whether it's watermelon, red, watermelon red, or I'll use the the darker, the June bug red, and that kind of stuff as well. But I'll use them in the. I tend to like the little Zoom worms, the little speed worm, or the Magnum. Those tend to be the ones that I use. I rig them up. I'll put a little crazy glue on the end of the. I'll tie it up, get my weight on there, but I'll put a little crazy glue right on the arm, on the arm of the hook. I wish I had a hook in front of me. I apologize. I probably should have had that stuff. And then I'll pull the worm up onto that crazy glue, and it holds it there really good. You can catch several fish without the worm pulling down on you. I like to throw. Here's the one thing: be in the moment fishing. Remember, get your rod tip about waist level. You don't want your rod tip too high, but you don't want it real low either, because a lot of times when they hit that swimming worm, it's like hitting you want to be able to give them a little and then hit it. I fish with some people that fish a swimming worm, and for goodness sakes, they'll let them take it. I don't do that. John Tavano. But I mean, I get a hit on it, I drop, I smash it, and that's how I play with a swimming worm. Swimming worms are great, and they're probably one of the best ways to catch a fish on Okeechobee. I'm not kidding you. I've never been a place where swimming worms work so good. And they've saved my tail as a guide on several occasions. Swimming worms have. So good luck with that. I'd say, what is your favorite bait fish on those hot sunny days? What is your favorite bait to fish on those hot summer sunny days with no wind and it feels like bass are just not biting? Great question. I'm going to drop shot. I'll drop shot. I like to throw gulp baits, those little gulp minnows, or the little green, the little 3-inch crawler it's called. It's about this long. I love gulp baits. I'm going to actually do my next tutorial. I'm going to do a drop shot tutorial, and I'm going to do a tube tutorial as well. I've had a lot of people asking me about that stuff since I've been up here fishing for smallmouth. But I drop shot in Florida all the time. So I'm going to do a drop shot tutorial. Watch for that tomorrow, probably, frankly. In any case, guys, listen, I'm up at about 12 minutes here, and I don't want this thing to get too long. I'll try and get better at answering more questions as we do this thing. But I've still got 4 or 5 really good questions that I want to answer, and I think I'm gonna go ahead and call this part 1, and then I'm gonna do a part 2, and probably put that out along with the tutorial. I might do a double dump on you tomorrow. I'm gonna get this one up right now. Listen, guys, if you like the video, man, hit the like. Keep sharing that darn thing. Let's get some new subscribers out here. We're building a fire. It helps me so much. By the way, big fishing deal coming up next weekend here. So far, so good. Anyway, this is Captain Dave Schneider. It's a Guide's Life. I'm gonna cut this thing off right here. Thanks for all your questions, guys. I've got more questions, and I'm gonna answer them all because every question is really good. But the rest of you guys, I haven't answered your question yet. Check back part 2. I'll have you there. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Captain Dave Schneider. Oh, I love it.